Just a few hours ago, Prism launched. Now you can partake in buying Prism tokens. But how does that work? What are the tokenomics of Prism? Most importantly, should you be a buyer of Prism? Welcome to Crypto Saver. So we're going to begin by looking at the actual interface right now that's available to everybody. And as we look on the page here, you can kind of see what the timestamp is. So as I make this video, we have 3 days and 17 hours to participate. And this will go on for the next 5 days, actually. To give you a quick little brief as to how this will work. So during the course of these first 4 days, at any point in time, you can come in and you can provide UST. Now, once you do provide the UST, it does not mean that you're going to receive the Prism tokens right now. What ends up happening is, so during this event, there are going to be 70 million Prism tokens allocated to those that take part in the event. And the way they calculate this, they will simply take 70 million divided by the amount of UST inside the vault. In other words, the more UST there is in the vault, the higher each Prism token would be priced, meaning you'd get less of them. That being said, you do not have to rush and do this. The people that come in here and provide the UST on day 1 will receive the same exact price as those that come in and provide it on day 4. Simply after 5 days, they will look at how much UST was deposited. They'll do that math. And after day 5, on day 6, you would receive your Prism tokens. This is a fairly clever way of doing it because it essentially stops anyone that has bots to front run other people, get their hands on the tokens, and dump it on those that come in late. Now let's start talking about the actual tokenomics, right, which will help us determine whether or not it's a good purchase. So for starters, it's important to know that Prism will have its own DEX. They ended up forking Terra Swap, so their DEX will be known as Prism Swap, which will allow them to collect more fees whenever people are exchanging between different tokens within their platform. And let's take a quick look as to what those pairs would be. We would see liquidity pools for Luna Prism, C Luna Prism, Y Luna Prism, P Luna Prism, UST Prism, AUST Prism, and also X Prism and Prism. And if you know very little about Prism, I suggest watching this video right here where I give you a great introduction, in my opinion, as to how Prism is going to work. And truth be said, I do think Prism is a very exciting project, and I do see that people will be using it. And looking at these pools that will be available, it does tell me that the only way to utilize the functionalities and the features that Prism will offer, which is specifically their refracting process, which allows you to take a Luna and split it between Y Luna, which will represent the yield side, and P Luna, which would represent the actual principal of that token. The fact that you can only trade in and out of those using Prism tokens obviously would help provide additional buying pressure towards those that are holding Prism in their wallet. Now, we could also look at where the fees are coming from. Number one, we have 10% of the yield of Y assets bonded in Prism. So going back to the refracting, if I refract my Luna and I have Y Luna and I want to start earning that yield on Y Luna, I would have to stake it with Prism to receive that staking rewards from Luna. While they do charge a commission for that, it's a 10% commission. And that commission is essentially passed over to those that are staking their Prism. On top of that, it also says that 100% of the yield of unbonded assets, of example, Y Luna tokens that are being used to provide liquidity. So if you are providing liquidity within the Y Luna Prism pool, your Y Luna will not be gaining any sort of yield, obviously, so that yield will actually be passed over to those that are holding Prism. And then we have 0.1% of all the values of all the swaps generated within Prism Swap. Those, again, will be passed over to the Prism holders. And the final point would be 0.3% of, which again is the fee for any limit orders successfully executed in Prism. And I've kind of discussed this in my prior video where there will be an opportunity to use your AUST to place limit orders on Luna if you would like to do so. And the pool that would be used for that would be AUST Prism. Now let's take a quick look at what the distribution of the Prism tokens are going to be like. So we can see that 20% goes into the Prism treasury, 7% into the Prism Forge, 13% into the Y Luna farming event, and then we have about 40% that end up going into the insiders, and 20% that goes into the community fund. Now the biggest thing to take away from this is the fact that about 40% of all the Prism tokens, they will begin to get vested month 6. So 6 months from now, essentially, those insiders will have the opportunity to start selling their Prism tokens if they would like to do so. Now that we got a quick breather on Prism and the tokenomics behind it, let's first discuss what causes tokens to essentially not hold their value. Why do they dump? The first factor would be the free tokens that are being given out. So for example, if you are a Luna staker, you know that you typically would receive airdrops on new projects launching on Terra. Now, many people, hell, even including myself, when you would receive that airdrop from some project that you're not too crazy about, you don't really care about, you take those tokens and you swap them out for Luna, for example. So when those projects launch and they have all these airdrops going out, people take them, people dump them on the market, and that provides that downward pressure on the token. Now, when it comes to Prism, there actually is no airdropped Prism at all. So if you've been staking Luna or whatever else, you will not be receiving free Prism. So that might help actually alleviate any sort of price pressure that would typically come when other projects enter Terra. Another reason why tokens tend to do bad would be the little fees. The general idea behind collecting fees and providing value towards people that are staking that native token on the platform is that you would hope that the fees would be enough to buy back your token, creating that buying pressure, right? That sounds good on paper, but a big problem is if very few people are using your platform and the platform is generating too little fees, then the amount of tokens that the platform is buying, giving that buying pressure, it's not enough to overtake the amount of selling pressure that's occurring from weekly airdrops or from a Genesis drop or people simply farming the yield, the liquidity pools. So you definitely need a lot of fees, because the more fees the platform is able to put together, that means the more buybacks they can do, meaning that they can also apply that much more buying pressure to counteract the amount of selling that would be occurring. The third factor would be huge emissions. And this would simply be how many tokens are, again, just being given out as a reward for providing liquidity. That's also a very big problem. So as we've seen with Astro, and a lot of this comes from Astro's technology in terms of the boot swapping, the bootstrapping here. And one of the goals here is that the platform is able to set up a lot of liquidity out of the gate. And in doing so, when they finally launch, the APRs on these pools is not going to be that great because there's a lot of liquidity there to begin with. A typical issue is that a project launches, let's say a few months ago, a project would launch, and there would not be much liquidity in the LP. So some people would come in, they would provide liquidity, and they would receive 100, 150% APR in that project's token, and they would just start dumping it like crazy. But in this case, because they're essentially bootstrapping their token value and their treasury, they're able to create liquidity pools that are much more deeper, meaning that the APRs in them are not going to be that great coming out of the gate. So people are not going to be coming in and just farming and dumping those tokens. And the fourth factor would be insiders dumping, right? Predominantly, insiders tend to hold the vast majority of tokens. And in this case, they do hold 40%, and they start vesting after 6 months. Now, I cannot give any positives here for Prism because that is a very quick vesting period that just after 6 months they can start selling their tokens. And let's be honest here, they will start selling their tokens here because inevitably, these people, they did put in time, they did put in money to try to get the project off the ground, and at some point or another they want to reap the fruits of their labor, and they are going to start selling. So it's something to keep in mind here, that there is going to be pressure on the token starting month 6. So the elephant in the room, should you be buying Prism tokens? To answer that question, let's go through a trip down memory lane. ANC, dumped. Mirror, dumped. Astro, dumped. Mine, dumped. Whale, dumped. Kujira, dumped. PSI, dumped. I think at this point you kind of get my point here. We have yet to see an altcoin on Terra actually hold its value. It doesn't matter what type of strategy they try to take with the tokenomics, we just have not seen them be profitable for anybody. And that was during a bull market of last year, by the way. You could look at these tokens while Luna went from 6 to 100, and you could see what these tokens did. They still couldn't get off the ground properly. They were still selling off. And right now we are dealing with a bear market without a question. Now, there is one way for you to actually get your hands on Prism tokens without actually having to use your money, and that's by taking part in the Y Luna farming event. And this farming event will take place over the course of 1 year, and it begins on February 16th. And simply all you will be doing instead of receiving your typical Luna staking rewards for staking your Y Luna, you could elect to receive those rewards as Prism tokens. So that would be your way of getting your hands on Prism without actually having to use your USD to do so. You're just simply going to be exchanging your Luna staking rewards for Prism tokens. And the last thing I want to clarify here, so when you do stake your Prism tokens, you will receive X Prism in return. Think of this as when you deposit into Anchor, you would receive AUST. Well, instead of AUST, you're basically receiving X Prism. So the X Prism token will be accruing in value over time as the fees are being collected and as the buybacks are being done and so forth. So the X Prism token will essentially represent your accrued rewards. Now, before I leave you, even though I said that I personally do not recommend buying the Prism token, I'm still going to provide 50 USD into this current phase 1. And not so much because I think the Prism token will go up in value from this launch. It might go up a day or two, but I still feel like there's just going to be so much pressure, as there always been with these altcoins. But I'm just doing this simply to support the project, because even though I'm not in love with the token, and there's very few tokens I could be in love with since they just haven't been a profitable endeavor for us, I'm still willing to do this because I do support the project, and I think the refraction feature that Prism brings to the table is very, very interesting. So I could imagine that, yes, the platform would be used, and I do just want to support that. So I will put in 50 USD, and this will obviously show you how it looks like. So we can click on Provide here. We're going to hit on Post, and it's currently pending. There is the success, and there is your contribution. And as we can currently see, it says your expected Prism tokens. I would receive about 1,500 Prism tokens. Now, don't hang your hat on that, because I would expect that there'll be more people depositing USD. I mean, we're not even 12 hours into this event yet. So I would expect that the USD inside the vault to at the very least get to 10 million, if not more, which would obviously bring down the amount of Prism tokens that I would need. The only interesting thing here actually is if you do want to take part in the refracting process, as we've seen, all the pools require Prism. So either way, you kind of have to swap into Prism at one point or another. So if there are going to be a lot of people out of the gate kind of trying to use the refracting process, there will be that demand for Prism tokens. So it might make sense that you buy some right now just to strictly use for the refraction process, because there could be a lot of demand for that. But in terms of holding it just for a few months and so forth, again, I'm not yet sold on that. But in terms of maybe getting some Prism tokens right now to use, when we have, I think, what does it say here? February 11th, the refracting process begins. That's not a bad idea. Now, if you enjoyed this video, this little tutorial here, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you care for more Terra-related content, make sure to subscribe. Any other questions, leave them in the comments below. And I also have a Discord. It's free to join. It's in the description. Other than that, thank you for watching and have a great day.